Hello everyone and welcome to my video lecture series. Today we are going to start with a new topic which is biotechnology. Okay, if you are watching this video and if you have yet not subscribed to my channel, kindly do so and also press the bell icon so that you get regular updates whenever I upload the videos. Anyway, coming back to the topic for today, we are going to start with a topic which is called as biotechnology. Okay, now what is the meaning of biotechnology? Biotechnology in simple words is application of technology in biological sciences. So let me write it down. It is the application of technology in biological sciences. Okay, and biotechnology is considered as a field of biology, please remember that. And nowadays many products are made through biotechnology, so it is gaining much more importance. Okay, now this word biotechnology, this term biotechnology was first used by a person called as Carl Ehricke. So I will write down his name over here. Okay, Carl Ehricke was the first person to use the term biotechnology, and he used it in 1919. Now please remember, Carl Ehricke used this word for the mass scale production of pigs. Okay, so by using biotechnology, by using a technique which is called as recombinant DNA technology, we can basically clone many animals. So mass scale, large scale of pigs were produced during that time using this biotechnology. Okay, and that is why, that is when this term was first used by the person called as Carl Ehricke. So he used it during, please remember, mass scale production of pigs. Don't worry, we will go into the technique in the later lectures. Right now just remember this, that the first person to use the term was Carl Ehricke. Is this clear? Now if you want to define biotechnology, what will be the definition? So many organizations, many different institutes have given the definition of biotechnology. Out of them, the definition that we are going to study for biotechnology is given by an institute called as OECD, and OECD stands for Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So every institute, every organization has given its own definition of biotechnology. The most common definition given is by OECD, and OECD says that biotechnology can be defined as the application of scientific and engineering skills to the processing of products obtained from biological agents so that they can be used for human welfare. Now it's a very big definition. Let us first write it down and then see what is the meaning of that definition. Okay, so the definition is application of scientific and engineering techniques or skills right, for the processing of materials obtained from biological agents. So this is the definition. Okay, so application of scientific and engineering techniques or skills for the processing of materials obtained from biological agents is called as biotechnology. Now let us break this definition down. First of all, what is processing of materials obtained from biological agents. So biological agents are basically plant cell, animal cell, microorganisms, and the enzymes which are released by all these cells, they are called as the biological agents. So from these biological agents you get certain products, and these products, okay, you can process them or you can modify them. And how do you modify them? You modify them using engineering skills and scientific skills. And after you modify these products, these modified products can be used for the welfare of human beings. Is this clear? So it is the application of scientific and engineering techniques or skills for the processing of materials obtained from biological agents so that they can be used for human welfare. What is the meaning of they? They are the products which are formed. Okay, so basically from the living organisms you are getting products which you are processing or modifying using scientific skills or engineering skills, and after the products have been modified, these modified products can be used by human beings for their welfare. Okay, and this is called as biotechnology. This definition is given by the company or the institute called as OECD. Is this clear? Okay, so please remember, you are modifying substances which are occurring or which are coming from the living beings, and these modified substances can be used for the welfare of mankind. How do you modify these substances? You modify them by using scientific techniques and engineering techniques, and this process is called as biotechnology. Now, which scientific techniques or which scientific skills are utilized? So sciences of different kinds such as microbiology, okay, genetics, biochemistry, chemical engineering, mathematics, stats, computer technology, all these different sciences can be used. Okay, skills from all these different sciences can be used in biotechnology. Is this clear? So in short, biotechnology can be called as an amalgamation or a mixture of technology and biological sciences to produce products which are beneficial for mankind. Is this clear? Okay, so that ends the introduction part. Now, since when is biotechnology there? So biotechnology has been present since the advent of human civilization. Right from the time human civilization was present, since those times biotechnology has also been present, and that is why when we study about biotechnology, we can classify biotechnology into two phases. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scroll down. Okay, so if you want to classify biotechnology, we can classify biotechnology into two phases or two parts. Okay, the initial part is called as the classical or the traditional or the old biotechnology. So I will write down over here two phases of biotechnology, right? And the first phase or the first part of biotechnology, when biotechnology was very new, when man did not know that biotechnology is present, so that part is called as the traditional or the old or the classical biotechnology. Is this clear? And later on, as man came to know about biotechnology, there were more advances in biotechnology, there were more developments. So the next phase of biotechnology is called as the modern biotechnology. So please remember this, the two phases are traditional or old or classical biotechnology, and the later stage or the later phase is called as modern biotechnology. So right now, whatever products are formed using biotechnology, they are all a part of modern biotechnology. Now, what is the difference between traditional biotechnology and modern biotechnology? So traditional biotechnology is mostly used in most of the homes throughout the world and especially in India, and it is mainly used in all the kitchens. For example, most of the products which are produced like curd, yogurt, ghee, vinegar, okay, cheese. All these products are formed because of fermentation. I hope everybody knows what is fermentation. Okay, so fermentation is a process which is carried out by microorganisms, correct? And fermentation is basically nothing but biotechnology. So in the traditional biotechnology, basically we deal with everything related to fermentation. And please remember, in fermentation we are not controlling anything. The microorganisms are doing all the are doing everything, and it is controlled by them. So all the products which are produced because of fermentation, even fermented foods like idlis, dosas, all those things, so that is also a part of biotechnology, but that is called traditional biotechnology. So earlier, when this fermentation principle was used, many people didn't even know what was fermentation, and it was more of an art rather than a science. Okay, but later on, because of the discovery of microbiologists and many scientists, people came to know that this is carried out by microorganisms. The changes that are happening in the food, they are carried out by microorganisms, and that is why they realize that that is also biotechnology, but that is traditional biotechnology. Is this clear? Now what is modern biotechnology? So modern biotechnology was discovered approximately in 1973 by two people. Okay, Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer. Let me write down their names. Okay, Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer. These two people in the year 1973 discovered a technique which was called as recombinant DNA technology. So it is written like this. Okay, it stands, R stands for recombinant. So recombinant DNA technology, that was discovered by these two people, and that forms a part of the modern biotechnology. Now what is recombinant DNA technology? This is also called as genetic engineering. How is it different from traditional biotechnology? So by using this recombinant DNA technology, you can change the genetics of any organism. You can change the gene position, you can remove any gene, you can insert any gene, you can remove the gene from one organism, insert it into any other organism. So basically you can modify the DNA and RNA, and you can modify the genome, or you can modify the genetics of the organism, and this is called as modern biotechnology. This was very, very important because you could produce a desired product by changing the order of the genes or by introducing new genes. For example, many of the vegetables which are produced today, in them an additional gene is added, or some gene which does not cause growth of the vegetables, that is removed. So suitable genes are added or removed from the vegetable so that they give a good produce. And this is what this is called as modern biotechnology. You are basically playing around with the genetics. You are basically changing or altering the genes. You are basically changing the DNA or the RNA of that particular organism. Is this clear? This is called as recombinant DNA technology, or it is called as genetic engineering, because you are basically engineering the order of the genes. You are removing them, you are adding them, you are changing their position. All this can be done by using recombinant DNA technology, and that is called as modern biotechnology. Is this clear? So is the difference between traditional biotechnology and modern biotechnology clear? In traditional biotechnology, it was all about fermentation. Human beings didn't have to do anything. Everything was done by microorganisms. However, in modern biotechnology, it was basically discovered by two people, Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer, sorry, and they discovered this recombinant DNA technology through which you can change the genetics of any cell. Is this clear? Now there are two differences between traditional and modern biotechnology. Okay, the first difference between traditional and modern biotechnology is, because of modern biotechnology you can alter the genome of the organism, which is not possible in traditional biotechnology. So you can use many different methods to alter the genetics of the organism. It can be recombinant DNA technology, it can be polymerase chain reaction, it can be microarrays. All these techniques we will learn in the subsequent lectures, so don't worry about that. So in modern biotechnology, you can basically change the genome or the DNA or the RNA of the organism, which is not present in traditional biotechnology, which you cannot do in traditional biotechnology. So this is the first difference between modern and traditional biotechnology. The second difference is, in modern biotechnology, you can take the ownership of the product. See, modern biotechnology is controlled by man throughout. You are not leaving that job to something else. In traditional biotechnology, the product is formed due to activity of microorganisms. But in modern biotechnology, man himself is doing all the steps so that the required products are formed. So the ownership of the technology is with man. In the case of traditional biotechnology, the ownership is with the microorganisms. And also you can decide how the product will have an socio-political impact. Any product that you form, how will it have an impact on the population, on the politics of the region, all that you can control. So that is another difference between traditional and modern biotechnology. So I hope these two differences are clear. First difference is that you can change the genetics of the organism using many different methods like polymerase chain reaction, recombinant DNA technology, microarrays, etc. And the second difference is the complete ownership of the technology. In the case of modern biotechnology is with us. We can do whatever we want, we can devise new methods, okay, and we can also decide how it will have a socio-political impact on the society. Is this clear? So with that, we finish with this introduction part. So I hope this is clear. So up till now we have covered the definition of biotechnology, okay. Then we have seen the two phases of biotechnology. They are traditional or classical or old biotechnology, mainly dependent on fermentation, and second is called as modern biotechnology, which was discovered by Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen, and it was called as recombinant DNA technology or genetic engineering, with which you can change the genetics of the cell or any organism. Is this clear? Okay, now we have to study the techniques of modern biotechnology. See, we are not going to go into traditional biotechnology, fermentation. We are going to start with modern biotechnology. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub this off. So basically modern biotechnology is made up of two techniques. I will write it down. Modern biotechnology, if you see, is made up of two main techniques, okay. The first technique is called as genetic engineering and the second one is called as chemical engineering. So chemical engineering and genetic engineering, both of them form this modern biotechnology. Now what is the difference between genetic engineering and chemical engineering? Genetic engineering, I have already told you. Genetic engineering means that you are changing the genome of an organism or of a cell so that you can get the desired product, and this desired product is formed in vitro. Please remember, I will write this word over here, in vitro. In vitro means the product is formed artificially in a laboratory. It is not formed inside the organism, okay. For example, if a protein is formed in the laboratory artificially, it is called as in vitro production of the protein. That same protein can be formed inside the body of an organism, but that is not in vitro because that is produced inside the body of the organism. Something which is produced artificially in the laboratory, that is called as in vitro. So genetic engineering is basically changing the genetics so that you can produce a desired product in vitro. Is this clear? How can you do that? You can do that by something which is called as gene manipulation. I will write down the word over here, gene manipulation. It is the same thing as genetic engineering. Gene manipulation means you can change or you can play around with the genes. What all you can do? So just imagine there is a cell, okay. And so I will do one thing, I will draw it over here. Just imagine this is a cell, right? And inside this cell there is this green colored gene. Now suppose if this gene is a defective gene, okay, it is not working properly. So how can I rectify that? So the first thing that I can do over here is I can repair the gene. Okay, so again that repair of gene can be done by genetic engineering. That is the first option. Second option is, if I cannot repair that gene, then I can replace the gene. So what I will do, I will remove that gene. Are you getting me? So I will rub that gene off, or I will remove that gene, and instead of that I will add another gene, or I will insert another gene into that cell, and that gene is the working gene. So second thing that I can write over here is remove the defective gene and replace it with a working gene. Is that clear? That is the second thing that I can do in gene manipulation. The third thing that I can do is I can add an additional gene which was never present in the organism. Suppose if I want to add one more gene which is a blue colored gene, okay, it was never present in the organism, then I can add that blue colored gene inside the organism using gene manipulation. What else can I do? I can change the location of the gene inside the organism. So let me write down these points which I have just told you. The next point that I can do in gene manipulation is add a new gene in the organism. Then the next one is I can change the location of gene in the organism. At the same time, what else can I do? So if I have two organisms, now this is first organism, right? This is organism number 1. This is organism number 2. Suppose if I want to remove the gene from one organism and I want to put it into the other organism. So from here I can remove this gene and I can insert it into this organism. Again, this transfer of gene is also done through genetic engineering or gene manipulation. So basically you can do anything with the genes. You can play around, you can remove, you can add, you can change the position, you can transfer them from one organism to other, you can add an unknown gene. All these you can do through genetic engineering. So let me write down the last point. Okay, you can basically transfer genes from one organism into the other. All this comes under genetic engineering. So what have I written? First is reparation of gene. Second is, if it is not repairable, remove the defective gene and replace it with a working gene. Third is you can add a totally new gene into the organism. Fourth is you can change the location of the gene inside that organism. Transfer of gene from one organism to another. All these things are called as gene manipulation. And where does gene manipulation occur? Gene manipulation occurs in genetic engineering, and genetic engineering is also called as recombinant DNA technology or gene cloning. So there are three words which have the same meaning. First is genetic engineering, second is recombinant DNA technology, third is gene cloning, and they all basically mean the same thing. Is this clear? So this is one of the techniques of modern biotechnology. Which is the other technique of modern biotechnology? That technique is called as chemical engineering. Now what is chemical engineering? So chemical engineering is basically providing a sterile environment to create products such as enzymes, organic acids, vitamins, vaccines, antibodies. So the biotechnology which is used, the part of biotechnology which is used for providing a sterile environment. What is a sterile environment? Sterile environment is an environment where there are no microorganisms. It is completely sterile. There are no organisms which are present. So in chemical engineering, you basically provide a sterile environment for the production of certain things like vaccines, right? Vitamins, organic acids, right? Antibodies. All right. So all these things, they are produced in a sterile environment, and that is called as chemical engineering. So let me write it down. Okay. Providing a sterile environment. See, sterile environment is an environment where no bacteria, microorganisms, viruses are present. It is completely free of that. That is called as a sterile environment. So providing a sterile environment for creating products like, which are the products? Vaccines, vitamins, organic acids, antibodies, etc. Is this clear? So all these products are also produced through biotechnology by providing a sterile environment to them. That is called chemical engineering. So I hope that is clear. So we studied the two phases of biotechnology, right? The traditional and the modern. Under modern biotechnology, we studied both the techniques, genetic engineering, which is also called as gene cloning, which is also called as recombinant DNA technology, which is also called as gene manipulation, and the other part was chemical engineering. So I hope this is clear. So this part up till now, whatever we have studied, that is mostly theoretical, that is not asked in the exams, it is just for your understanding. However, you will understand biotechnology better when we start with the techniques, because you will understand what we are talking. Right now maybe you might find all this confusing, so don't worry, this part is not important from the exam point of view. Now we are going to basically start with what is called as recombinant DNA technology. Okay, so before we start with the materials which are required for recombinant DNA technology, what is this recombinant DNA technology? Please understand that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub this off. Now in simple words, recombinant DNA technology means that I'm going to explain this with a diagram. Okay, I'm going to show you two cells. So this cell, and on that I'm going to write down host cell. So host cell is the cell in which you want to insert the desired gene. Okay, and the other cell which I am going to draw over here, just imagine this is the donor cell. Okay, donor cell is the cell which is going to give the gene. Now first of all, what are genes? For all those who don't know what are genes, everybody knows what a DNA is. So just imagine this is a double stranded DNA, or I should draw a realistic 3D diagram so that everybody understands. This is how your DNA is, right? This is the double stranded DNA, if you remember, right? And this is the 5' end, this is the 3' end, this is the 3' end, this is the 5' end, this is the DNA. And in this DNA, what are present? Nucleotides are present. So if you remember, A will be present over here, then there will be T over here, G will be present, triple bond C. So these double triple bonds are present in the DNA helix or DNA molecule, right? It is present throughout the DNA, and these hydrogen bonds which are present, they keep the two strands together. Everybody knows there is a double bond between A and T, so A double bond T, and there is a triple bond between G and C. Okay, now what is a gene? So gene is basically a segment of DNA having some amount of nucleotides. So suppose now if I rub this diagram off and I draw a linear structure of DNA, just imagine this is a double stranded DNA, right? This is 5', this is 3', this is 3', and this is 5'. Okay, and on this I am writing down the nucleotides A, T, G, C, A, G, C. Here the nucleotides will be T, A, C, G, T, T, C, G. Okay, and now what I am doing is I am going to basically just show these marks. Okay, so now this area number 1 can be called as gene 1. This is gene 2, this is gene 3. So what are genes? Genes are basically short sequences of nucleotides which are present together. So many genes make up the DNA. Is this clear? So I hope this concept of gene is clear. Now, how do you take the gene and put it into the host cell? So now the donor cell, obviously the genes will be present in the DNA, and DNA is present into the inside the nucleus, right? So now what we will be doing is, suppose if this is the nucleus of the donor cell, let me just label this over here. So from this nucleus we will be removing the gene, okay, and this gene you cannot directly insert into the nucleus of the host cell. So this is the nucleus of the host cell, right? But the gene which you have removed from the donor, you cannot directly just insert it into the host cell. You need to first attach it with a substance which is called as a vector. So this over here, suppose this molecule which I have drawn, that is a vector. So what I will do is, I will first of all add this gene to the vector. So what I will do this will now get converted into something like this. So this vector is having the gene which is inserted, and now this vector will be inserted into the host cell. Are you getting this point? So what I will do is, I will draw the vector a bit smaller because vector is going to go inside the nucleus. So this is the vector, and this will give you the vector plus your required gene, and that will be inserted into the nucleus of the host cell. So this is called as recombinant DNA technology. So what is the function of a vector? A vector is basically a substance which is carrying the gene from one cell to another. See, you cannot directly remove the gene from one cell and insert that into another cell. No. See, another example of a vector which I can give is a mosquito. So a mosquito, when it carries a protozoan called as a plasmodium, and when the mosquito bites a human being, that plasmodium enters the bloodstream of the humans and it causes malaria. So that plasmodium, to enter the human body, it has to be transmitted by the mosquito. So the mosquito becomes a vector. It is transporting the plasmodium. See, a person who is having malaria, if a mosquito bites that person, then it will suck the blood, and through that blood the plasmodium will enter the mosquito. When that same mosquito bites a healthy person, a normal person, again that plasmodium will go into that person. So the transfer of plasmodium is happening via mosquito, which is a vector. Similarly, here in this recombinant DNA technology, we use a molecule which is called as a vector, and to this vector the required gene is attached, and then this vector is inserted into nucleus of the host cell. When this vector is inserted into the nucleus of the host cell, so now I have this vector inside the nucleus, and I also have the gene inside the host cell, and this cell is called as the recombinant or the modified cell. Now what will happen, as this cell multiplies or undergoes cell division, everything will divide, even the genes will divide, and that gene will be a part of the genome of the new cell. Is this clear? So this is called as recombinant DNA technology or gene cloning in simple words. Okay, now this I have just given you a summary. We have to study in detail how this is done. The vector is also called as a cloning vector. Please remember, because you are using it to clone genes. You are using that to multiply genes, because when that host cell will divide, the gene which has been inserted, that will also divide, everything will multiply. So that is why it is called as a cloning vector. Please remember. So this is called as recombinant DNA technology or gene cloning. Is this clear? Okay, we will be learning this in the next lecture, not in this lecture. This is just a summary that I have told you. Is that clear? Okay. Now let us start with the recombinant DNA technology. So this part which I taught you, that part in the book, it is called as technique of gene cloning and recombinant DNA technology, right? So this is the technique of recombinant DNA technology. Now let us start with the next part, which is called as tools and techniques which are required for recombinant DNA technology. So we are basically going to start with the requirements of recombinant DNA technology. Is that clear? Okay, so let us start the next part, which is about the requirements of recombinant DNA technology or the tools and techniques. See, recombinant DNA technology we are going to study, but before that, what all things are required for that technology that we have to study? So that is called as tools and techniques or requirements. Is this clear? Okay. Now, what are the requirements? First thing that you need. So I told you what is recombinant DNA technology. You remove a gene from one cell, you attach it to a cloning vector, you add that cloning vector into the nucleus of the host cell, and that is your recombinant DNA technology. Now, where will I get that gene from? So that gene I am getting from the donor cell, okay? But the donor cell, so let me draw this donor cell again. This is your donor cell, right? And this donor cell is having a nucleus, and inside the nucleus is present the DNA, right? So let me just draw this DNA, and from this DNA you are getting the gene, correct? So if I want to get that gene from the donor cell, how will I get that gene? So first of all, I will have to separate all the components of the cell from which I am taking that gene. You cannot just remove a gene directly from a cell. It is not possible, because a cell is a complex structure made up of many macromolecules. Carbohydrate, protein, fats, different organelles, all these things are present. So first thing that I will have to do is I will have to separate all these macromolecules. You will have to separate the fats, the proteins, the carbohydrates, the organelles. You will have to separate the DNA, and then from the DNA you can extract the required gene. Is that clear? So the first thing that you need to do is to separate all the macromolecules from the cell. And how do you separate the macromolecules? So you can use many different instruments or techniques. Okay, first of all, the best way of separating all the different parts of a cell are basically using separation based on molecular weight or using separation based on the charge. So separation based on molecular weight means the substances which are having a higher molecular weight will be separated from the substances having lower molecular weight. And separation based on charge means some substances are negatively charged, some are positive, some are neutral. So all these substances will be separated. See, you just want to separate all the parts of the cell so that you can take the DNA, and from the DNA you can take the gene. That is why you are separating all the parts of the cell. So which techniques can be used? So techniques for, I will write down over here, separation based on molecular weight and electrical charge. Okay, so these are the techniques, or these are the instruments, or these are the methods which are used to separate the macromolecules or components of a cell based on their molecular weight or their electrical charges. Which are the techniques? I'm going to write down the names. Okay, don't worry, nobody is going to ask you the meaning of these techniques. So 1 minute. So first one is called as ion exchange chromatography. Chromatography is basically separation. Okay, so this is one of the techniques that can be used. The other technique that can be used is called as osmotic pressure. Another method which is used that can be called as spectroscopy. Okay, then okay, so I will have to rub this off, the later part. Okay, another method which can be used for separation of macromolecules is called as mass spectrometry. All these are different methods. Okay, they are using instruments, and with these instruments and these complex devices you are separating the cell based on their molecular weight, and you are separating the component of cells based on their charge. And one of the most important techniques is called as electrophoresis. So what is the meaning of electrophoresis? See, electrophoresis is very widely used in recombinant DNA technology. And electrophoresis, from the word itself you can make out, it is basically separating the different macromolecules of a cell based on their charge. For example, DNA is negatively charged. So if you use a electrophoresis device, and if you add the DNA towards the cathode, that is the negative terminal, then if you apply an electric charge, what is going to happen is the DNA will move from cathode towards the anode. It will move from the negative terminal towards the positive terminal. So automatically you can separate the DNA from the other macromolecule. That is called as electrophoresis, separation of molecules based on their electrical charge and by applying an electrical field. Now there are different types of electrophoresis that has been mentioned in the book. For example, there is something which is called as agarose gel electrophoresis. So I will write down over here, agarose gel electrophoresis. Then there is something which is called as PAGE, which is polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. Then there is something called as SDS PAGE, which is SDS, polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. Okay, SDS is sodium dodecyl sulfate. Okay, don't worry about those methods, it is not given in the book. These are the types of electrophoresis. Maybe if you do your graduation in biology or similar science, then you will learn about this, but right now for your 12th standard this is not important. So please remember, these are the different techniques which can be used to separate the macromolecules from each other in a cell. Why are we separating them? Because we want to get that desired gene. You cannot directly pick up a gene from the DNA because everything is very tightly packed in a cell. So we will have to separate different components. Then from the DNA you can remove the gene. Is this clear? And the methods which you can use for separation based on molecular weight and the charge are ion exchange chromatography, osmotic pressure, spectroscopy, mass spectrometry, electrophoresis, 3 types. Is this clear? So these are the different instruments or methods which are used for separation of macromolecules. This is the first part. Okay, this is the first requirement for recombinant DNA technology. Then once through electrophoresis, when you can separate the DNA and when you can get the gene, the next requirement is amplification of the gene. Okay, so now this is a very important part. Please pay attention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scroll down. Okay, I hope we have enough space. So we have studied the first requirement of recombinant DNA technology, and that is how do you separate all the components of the cell by using different methods. Now the second requirement of recombinant DNA technology is called as gene amplification. See, now you separated DNA, you got the gene. Suppose if you have a single gene, if you have a single copy of a gene, but you want more copies of that same gene because you want to use it in different methods. Then if one gene is not enough, you can basically produce multiple copies of that same gene. Or suppose if I show a DNA fragment over here which is ATCA, okay, and here it will be TAGT. Suppose this is 5' to 3' and this is 3' to 5'. Suppose if this is the gene, and this gene you have got by separating the different macromolecules, and from the DNA you have got this. But if you want suppose 10 copies of the gene and you have only one copy, then what will you do? Because one copy is not enough for all the different methods that you are going to use. So the method used is called as amplification. Amplification means multiplication. So you can produce duplicate copies of the same gene using a method which is called as polymerase chain reaction. Okay, and polymerase chain reaction is just like DNA replication. If you remember, in DNA replication, one parent DNA gives rise to 2 daughter DNA molecules. Semi-conservative method, right? Similarly, in PCR or polymerase chain reaction, when you add one single gene, after every cycle it becomes double. So after one cycle of PCR, you will get 2 quantity of the gene. Then if you continue the cycle, next cycle you will get 4, then you will get 8. So that is called as amplification or multiplication or division of gene. So the next method that we are going to study, the next requirement for recombinant DNA technology is called as PCR, or it is also called as polymerase chain reaction. Now why is it called as polymerase chain reaction? Because polymerase is used. If you remember, DNA polymerase is used in replication. Second is chain because the reactions occur one after the other and they form a chain. So that is why it is called as polymerase chain reaction, and it is PCR. Please remember, this method was developed by a person called as Marie Curie. Okay, Marie Curie invented this polymerase chain reaction method, and PCR is done by the use of PCR machines. I will show you the photo if you want. Okay, so there are machines which are called as PCR machines, which are fully automated machines. Okay, so you can see over here this diagram, if you see on the top. Okay, this is the example of a PCR machine. It is a fully automated machine, and in this machine basically there are small tubes which are kept. Okay, and these tubes are called as Eppendorf, Eppendorf. So you can see that the lid is open and you can see these areas which are present. So here these Eppendorfs are kept. I have already added another image, magnified image, so you can see over here these white colored tubes that you can see. These are small tubes called Eppendorf, and they are fitted inside the PCR. And whatever things that you need, whatever raw material you need for polymerase chain reaction, they are added in that tube. Then those tubes are inserted into the PCR machine, and then you set the values digitally, and then it will do its job automatically. You don't need to do anything. Okay, and this is also called as a PCR recycler. The machine is also called as a PCR recycler, or it is also called as a PCR machine. Is this clear? So the polymerase chain reaction is going to occur inside this machine, and what is going to happen? Suppose if you run this machine for one cycle, and if you add one single gene, then after one cycle, from one gene, after a single cycle of PCR, you will get two genes. Then if you run one more cycle, then from two genes you will get four genes. So in that way you can run many cycles and you can get the desired number of genes. Each gene is a duplicate copy of the original gene, please remember. So if your original gene is ATGC, then all the duplicate genes will also be ATGC. So in this way what you can do is, even if the required genes are less, suppose if you want 10 genes to insert them in 10 cells, and if you have only one gene, then you can amplify it. See, amplification means multiplication. Okay, so PCR is used to amplify the genes or DNA fragments or DNA pieces. Is this clear? This is also called as polymerase chain reaction. We have to learn about this reaction in detail. We are going to do that now. So anyway, coming back, so this machine is called as the PCR recycler, or it is also called as the PCR machine. Now let us move back to where we were. Okay, so we were on polymerase chain reaction, and that was discovered by a person called as Marie Curie. Is this clear? Now first of all, let us study what are the raw materials required for PCR. So right now we are studying skills and techniques which are used for recombinant DNA technology, or we are studying the requirements of recombinant DNA technology. In that, the first requirement we already did, the instruments which are used to separate the macromolecules. Now the second requirement is, after you have separated the macromolecules and got the gene, if you want to amplify the gene, if you want to produce more copies of the gene, you use a PCR. So the next part of what we are studying is PCR. PCR is a very, very important part from the board exam point of view. Everything that I will be saying now will be important, so please pay attention. So we are starting with PCR. Now first thing is, we have to write down about the requirements for PCR. What are the different things that we require for PCR? So all the requirements are basically related to DNA replication. If you remember DNA replication, right, there is a chapter called as molecular basis of inheritance. Okay, and in that chapter basically we have studied about DNA replication, right? So if you remember, DNA replication takes place, then there are primers, then there is DNA polymerase. If you remember all that, this will be very, very easy, PCR. So what are the requirements? So the first requirement for carrying out PCR or polymerase chain reaction is the required gene. So whatever gene you want to multiply, okay, so required gene, or I can write down DNA fragment. Piece of a DNA is called as DNA fragment, or it is called as a gene. So whatever single DNA fragment which you have, which you want to multiply, that is one of the requirements. Then the other requirement is you will require primers. Do you remember primers are responsible for DNA replication, formation of a new strand? So you will require two primers. The primers are also called as oligonucleotide primers. Now what is the meaning of oligonucleotide? Oligonucleotide primers means they have small amount of nucleotide. A primer is a sequence on which a new strand will be formed. Okay, oligonucleotide primers are the primers having small number of nucleotides, less number of nucleotides. Anyway, this word is not given. You require two primers. What else do you require? You will require the nucleotides, because DNA polymerase, when it forms a new strand, it will require nucleotides, right? And these nucleotides are called as DNTPs, if you remember. DNTP stand for deoxyribonucleoside triphosphates. Deoxyribonucleoside triphosphates. Is this clear? So these are what? These are your nucleotides. Nucleotides are called as DNTPs. Guys, if you have not seen the DNA replication lecture, please do watch it first, because if you don't remember that, you will not understand PCR. Please remember DNA replication, everything, DNA helicase, how the DNA unwinds, how the primers are attached to the 3' end of the parent strand, what is a template, what is a daughter strand, then how DNA polymerase picks up the nucleotides, forms a new strand. Everything is the same happening over here, just that replication is occurring artificially with the help of PCR machine. Okay, so these are the three requirements, and the last requirement, which is very very important, you will require DNA polymerase. So you will require a thermostable DNA polymerase. What is the meaning of thermostable? See, this PCR technique, it is basically working on different temperatures. Okay, so initially when the PCR machine starts, the temperature is very high. It is 90 to 98 degrees Celsius. Now if you use a normal DNA polymerase, that DNA polymerase will get destroyed at such a high temperature. So you need to use a DNA polymerase which is thermostable. What is the meaning of thermostable? Thermostable means it can be there, or it can survive even at high temperatures. Okay, see, DNA polymerase is an enzyme, and enzymes are stable only at a particular temperature. Normal enzymes are stable only up to 37 to 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, not higher than that. At 90 degrees Celsius, the enzyme will be destroyed. But certain enzymes, certain polymerases, they can work even at high temperatures, so they are called as thermostable DNA polymerase. You will realize when I tell you the process. So these are the requirements. Clear? First requirement is a gene, required gene which you want to multiply or amplify. Second is two primers. You will require that for formation of new strand. Then you will require DNTPs. Which are the DNTPs? So the DNTPs are adenine, thymine, guanine and cytosine. You know this. These are used to form the new strand. And last is the thermostable DNA polymerase, which is also called as Taq polymerase. We will see that. Now let us start with the process of PCR, or the functioning of PCR. Okay, now this is an important part, so please pay attention over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, again I'm going to draw a diagram for this. Now I'm going to draw a double stranded structure. Okay, this is 5 prime, this is 3 prime, this is 3 prime, this is 5 prime, and I'm going to write down a sequence over here, AATGC, and on the complementary strand the sequence will be TTACG. Now this is your gene. Okay, now this gene you want to amplify, you want to form more copies of the gene. Okay, so what we do is, when we start with PCR, those Eppendorf tubes which I showed you right in the diagram, in those tubes you add all these raw materials. So you add this gene, then you add the primers, then you add the DNTPs, and you add the polymerase. All these four things in those small Eppendorf tubes you add, and you keep those tubes in the PCR machine, and then you set the values. You decide for how many cycles the PCR is going to run. Okay, and then you start it. Now what happens is, the single, so each cycle of the PCR, cycle is basically the time in which one gene will divide to form two genes inside the machine, that is called as one cycle. So one cycle of a PCR is basically made up of 3 steps. Now let us see. The first step is called as denaturation. Okay, the first step is called as denaturation. And so I told you, you mix all the 4 requirements in the Eppendorf tube and you keep the Eppendorf tube inside the machine, you close the lid of the machine, you start it. As soon as the cycle starts, the temperature of the machine increases to somewhere around 90 to 98 degrees Celsius. Please remember, this is the temperature, almost near the boiling point of water. This is the first step of the PCR cycle and it is called denaturation. What will happen now in this diagram, if you can see, between A and T there will be a double hydrogen bond, between A and T double hydrogen, TNA double hydrogen, GNC triple, CNG triple, you know this. Now these hydrogen bonds, if you want to break, if I want to separate the 2 strands, I will have to break the hydrogen bonds, and hydrogen bonds can be broken with the help of heat. That is why the temperature of the machine increases up to 98 degrees Celsius. So this increase in temperature will break the hydrogen bonds. Please remember, these are the hydrogen bonds. See, we have already studied this in the previous chapters. These hydrogen bonds, they are temperature sensitive. As we increase the temperature, they break. So now what will happen? Because of this increased temperature in the machine, this gene which is having a double stranded DNA, that double stranded DNA will break, and now I will have 2 pieces of that fragment or the gene. Okay, this initial one which is 5' to 3', and it is having it is having the sequence AATGC, right? And it has separated from the next fragment which is 3' to 5', and what is the sequence on that? It is TTACG. I hope this is clear. So both the strands have separated because you have provided heat, and that heat has broken the hydrogen bonds, and now you have 2 single-stranded DNA, or you have 2 single-stranded DNA of the gene. Is this clear? See, this is your entire gene. Please don't get confused in this. This is your original gene, or it is also the DNA fragment. Okay, the same thing when it occurs naturally, it is done by DNA helicase and single strand binding proteins, you know that. But now in the machine you are providing heat. This is the first step. This is called denaturation. That is done. So the first step of the PCR cycle is called as denaturation. Please remember, this is step number 1. Now once the 2 strands are separated, now what I want to do, now on this first strand I want to create a complementary DNA. On the second strand I want to create a complementary DNA, so I will have 2 copies of the fragment. The next step is called as annealing. I think everybody knows what is the meaning of annealing. Annealing means joining. Okay, and for this the temperature of the machine reduces approximately to about 40 degrees to 60 degrees Celsius, because the primers cannot join to the DNA at a higher temperature. See, now you have already separated the double stranded DNA fragment, you have separated the 2 strands of the gene. Now you want to create a new strand on each of the fragments. So what you will do, you will need to add primers. You have already added the primers in the requirement. Eppendorf tube, you have added the primer, right? Now that primer can only attach to the fragment at a lower temperature. So in the second part of the cycle, the temperature decreases to 40 to 60 degrees Celsius, and at this lower temperature what happens is, to each of the strand the primer will attach. So I am going to again draw the strand. This was your original strand, 5' to 3', and the sequence on this strand was AATGC. Now on this strand the primer is going to attach. Now where does the primer attach? Please remember, DNA always grows from the direction 5 to 3'. So now the new DNA which is going to grow, that is going to grow in this direction. I hope you are understanding, because the new strands 5 prime will be here. Please remember, the new DNA will always grow from its 5 prime to the 3 prime end. So if it is going to grow from right to left, obviously I need to attach the primer to the 3 prime end of the template. Template is the parent. Okay, so this will now act like a template. Is this clear? And what should I use? Should I use the green color? So now just imagine this is your primer. I am writing into bracket over here primer number 1, and this primer is the 5 prime end, and this primer will then grow towards the left and form the new strand. Is this clear? Okay, similarly the other, so I will rub this off. Similarly, I have to show the primer attaching to the other strand as well. So I will draw a plus over here. Then again I have to draw the next strand, which is 3 prime to 5 prime. What was the sequence on that strand? The sequence on that strand was TT A C G. Now where will the primer attach to this strand? The primer will again attach to the 3 prime end over here, so it will be somewhere over here, and this will be the 5 prime end, and over here I will label primer number 2. Is this clear? Have you understood? See, the same thing we have learned in DNA replication. The primer always attaches to the 3 prime end of the parent strand or the template strand. This step is called as annealing. So we have already completed 2 steps of PCR. Now only a last step is remaining. First step was what? First step was denaturation. What is the meaning of denaturation? Denaturation means you increase the temperature of the PCR machine 90 to 98 degrees Celsius. That causes the hydrogen bonds to break and the 2 strands become separate. That is called denaturation. First step is over. Then as the denaturation is done, next thing that is going to happen is, now we will attach the primers. You will again lower the temperature. So that is the annealing. And annealing, for that we have to write down over here that this is the step number 2. We are only talking about a single cycle over here. Each cycle is of 3 steps. In annealing, the primer will attach to the 3 prime end. So if you want, you can show that there is a bond, there is a hydrogen bond between these two. If you want, you can show that. Okay, so the primer will have complementary sequence. If there is C over here, primer will have G. If there is T over here, primer will have A. Okay, primer is just a starting point for nucleotides to be added. So this is called as annealing. Now the last step is called as primer extension or polymerization. So for that step, what happens is the temperature is again increased. Okay, so I will write down over here primer extension. This is the next step, or this step is also called as polymerization because DNA polymerase comes over here. And during this step, which is your step number 3, please remember the temperature is again increased up to 70 to 75 degrees Celsius. So see, in each of the steps of the cycle, the temperature is fluctuating. First the temperature is very high, then it becomes low, then it becomes medium. So that is why, please remember, this is a temperature control machine, and because of the temperatures, different things are happening. At a low temperature, primer is attaching to the single stranded gene fragment. At a high temperature, the double stranded gene fragment is separating. At a medium temperature, now what is going to happen is, now you already have the primers which are attached. Now what are the 2 other things that you had added to the append of tube? Nucleotides, deoxyribonucleoside triphosphate, ATGC. So those nucleotides will be taken by DNA polymerase and they will create a new strand. Now why did you use a thermostable DNA polymerase? I told you, you use a DNA polymerase which can withstand high temperature, because in this entire machine the temperatures are going up to 98 degrees. If you use a normal DNA polymerase, it will get destroyed. That is why the special type of DNA polymerase which is used in the last step, that polymerase is called as Taq polymerase. Now in your book they have not given information about this. This DNA polymerase is obtained from a bacterium which is called as Thermus aquaticus. So you must have heard of hot springs. Hot springs are natural geysers which are present on the earth. So boiling water comes out from the earth naturally. In those areas also, in that boiling water, some bacteria are living. See, you must have heard of Archaebacteria, Eubacteria. Archaebacteria are the old bacteria. So some of them, they can be living in extremely high temperatures. So Thermus aquaticus is an example of bacterium which can survive even in boiling water. It is present in hot springs. And inside this bacterium, the DNA polymerase which is present, that is removed, and that is used in this PCR experiment. That is why it is called Taq permease. It is called Taq polymerase. T stands for Thermus and AQ stands for Aquaticus. So it is TAQ, Taq polymerase. Taq polymerase can withstand high temperatures. So even if you mix everything in the Eppendorf tube and keep it into the PCR, and the 90 to 98 degrees Celsius cycle is going on, even if that step is going on, the DNA polymerase will not get destroyed. See, if the DNA gets destroyed, DNA polymerase gets destroyed, then you will not be able to create a new strand. So you need to use a polymerase which can withstand high temperatures. So that is Taq polymerase. Okay, now let us show this step over here. So again the same thing, the strand template 5 prime to 3 prime. I will write down the sequence over here. AATGC, oh sorry, AATG. Okay, I added an extra C. Okay, and over here I have already added the primer which is over here. This is the primer, this is the 5 prime. Now what will Taq polymerase do? It will take the DNTPs. You have added the DNTPs, right? ATGC. It will take them, and whichever one is required it will attach. So over here it is going to attach, it is going to attach what? It is going to attach C. Over here it will attach A. Here it will attach T. Here it will attach T. Is this clear? Okay, and what will be formed? A new DNA will be formed. So this is your new DNA. This is 5 prime to 3 prime. Are you getting this? And obviously over here there will be a G. So this is your new DNA. Obviously later on the primers are removed, you know this. Now again we have to show the same thing for the next strand. So I'm going to write a plus over here. Now the original strand, it is what? It is 3 prime to 5 prime. So let us write that down. 3 prime over here, 5 prime over here. Sequence is what? Sequence is T, T, A, C, G. Already I have attached the primer over here, right? And this is the 5 prime end. Now again Taq polymerase will pick up the deoxyribonucleoside triphosphate or the nucleotides, and here there will be A, here there will be T, there will be A, here there will be G, here there will be C, and your new DNA will be formed. So are you getting this? Finally, when we have completed this polymerization step, how many genes you have got? You have got 2 genes. See, when we started off, okay, when we started off, how many genes did we have? Just see over here. You had a single gene which was having this AATGC, right? And now I am having 2 copies of the gene. Is this clear? And that is why it is called as amplification. Please remember, what is the meaning of amplification? After each cycle, the quantity of gene doubles. Again, if I continue this for one more cycle, there will be 4 genes. Then after that, 8 genes. Are you getting this? So I hope this is clear. Okay. Okay. So over here I have made a mistake. Okay. I should add this. Here I should make A, and over here I should write down T. So now if you see this properly, I am having the 2 copies of the gene. See, the original gene was what? The original gene was AATGC. Now am I having AATGC over here? Yes, I am having. Am I having AATGC over here? Yes. So I am having 2 copies of the gene. Are you getting this point? So 2 copies of earlier gene. So with that we have finished with PCR. Is this clear? So the last step is called as primer extension or polymerization, where the temperature is again increased to 70-75 degrees Celsius, so that the DNA polymerase or the Taq polymerase obtained from Thermus aquaticus, that can show its effect. Is this clear? So we have completed all the 3 steps of a single cycle of PCR. Okay, first step was called denaturation. At a very high temperature, the strands separate. Let us have a look at the diagram as I explain that again. So in the first step, that is denaturation, what happens is the 2 strands separate due to high temperature, 90 to 98 degrees centigrade. Then next step is annealing, where the temperature is brought down to 40 to 60 degrees Celsius, and what is done is the primers are added. Once the primers attach to the 3' end of the template, then again the temperature is increased up to 70 to 75 degrees Celsius, and at that time the Taq polymerase attaches the nucleotides to the primer and it creates a daughter strand. So you have two daughter DNA fragments, you have 2 genes, you had initially 1 gene. If you see the nucleotide order, it is the same on both the genes, so they are duplicate copies of your original gene. That is called 1 cycle. And normally when you are using a PCR machine, normally at least 20 to 30 cycles are going on one after the other, and the number of DNA will be formed. That number is actually 2 raised to n number of genes, or 2 raised to n number of DNA fragments are formed, where n is the number of cycles. For example, if you are running the PCR for 3 cycles, right, so 3 times there will be denaturation, 3 times there will be annealing, 3 times there will be primer extension. If you are running it for 3 cycles, then the DNA or the genes which will be formed will be 8, because after 1 cycle 2 genes, after 2 cycles 4 genes, after 3 cycle 8. So if you are running the same thing for suppose 4 cycles, you will get how many genes? You will get 16 genes. So I hope this is clear. So normally each PCR cycle is run up to 20 to 30 cycles, and each cycle takes approximately 3 to 4 minutes. Please remember, 1 cycle of PCR, that means 1 cycle of PCR has denaturation, annealing, primer extension, all of that completes in approximately 3 to 4 minutes. So it is a very fast process. In approximately 3 minutes you will have double the amount of genes which you had added. Is this clear? So that ends our polymerase chain reaction technique. Once your polymerase chain reaction is over, you can take out all those genes. Okay, again you can separate the genes using electrophoresis based on their molecular weight, and then whatever required gene you can use, you can attach it to the cloning vector, and then that cloning vector can be added into the host cell. Is this clear? So we have completed polymerase chain reaction, and we have completed the 2 requirements. The first was instruments and second is PCR, and with that we end our today's lecture. So I hope this is clear. Next time we are going to continue with the requirements for biotechnology, and then we are going to start with the actual recombinant DNA technology. If you have not still subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe, press the bell icon, put in a like if it helped you, share it with your friends, and thanks a lot.